Well, what if I told you that praying to God was easier than dialing even someone's number? What if I told you that praying to God was easier than even sending a text message? And that's what we're going to be looking at today in Matthew chapter 7, verses 7 through 11. So very quickly, let's just look at this together. It says, ask and it will be given to you. This is talking about talking to God. Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives, and he who seeks finds, and to him who knocks, the door will be open. In verse 9 and 10 it says, which of you, if his son asks for bread, would give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, would give him a snake? If you, though you are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good gifts to those who ask him? And here's what I want us to see, is that this entire passage takes place in the context of a relationship where we're invited to approach God as a heavenly, loving Father, not as someone who is indifferent towards you. Not as someone that's going to just, a transaction where I ask for something and he just gives it, but that's the sense of the relationship. I'll never forget when I was really sad when my bank closed. I had a bank that was really close to my house, and I was so sad when it closed because, even though I could get on my phone, and perhaps you do this, you get on your phone and you deposit checks, or you go to the ATM and you can do all your deposits automated. But I was so sad because when I went into my bank, the people there knew me. And they knew my kids. Many times if I had to go and do something, I would go after school. And so I'd bring my kids with me and they would say, hey, Dan, how are you doing? And they knew my kids' names and they would say, hey, how are you doing today? And then you know what my kids were always looking for when you went to the bank? They've got those little safety suckers, and that's how you make friends. And so they would pull out those little safety suckers and how's your day go? How was your weekend? And so, and then they closed the bank and it went from this relationship to automated. And I like automated. I mean, it's quick, it's easy, but there's no relationship involved. And that's what we're talking about today, is that God doesn't want just mere transaction. He wants a relationship with you. If you got your notes here this morning, I just want you to write down 3 simple things. Today's notes are brought to you by the letter P. So if you get something else, you know that you might have missed it. But I want us to talk about prayer. And the first thing that I want you to write down this morning, and perhaps that you just put in the notes section of your phone, is simply this. Prayer is the pathway to God's provision. Prayer is the pathway to God's provision. I'm going to put this up here on the screen so you can see what I've highlighted. It says right here in verse 7, ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Look at this. Knock and the door will be open to you. Now, I've got these highlighted up here. We're a little school today. All right, little school. All right, we've got school families in here, but just a little school. The reason I have these verbs highlighted up here is because these verbs are found in the present imperative tense. It's okay if you don't remember anything about English. That's totally fine. Here's what I want you to understand, is that in this tense, here's the easy way of understanding it. It doesn't just mean do it one time. Some of your Bible translations, I know the NLT has it this way. It really translates it more literally. It really should say, keep asking and it will be given to you. Keep seeking and you will find. Keep knocking and the door will be open to you. Jesus is saying, hey, listen, come to me continually. Come to me continually. Don't stop coming to me. I want to be your provision. I want to hear your prayers. I want you to keep coming in and coming to me the same way I would keep going into my bank over and over because I had a relationship with him. God says, I want you to keep coming to me because I want to hear what you have to say. I want to hear the things that you need. Last week, I had mentioned that during Hurricane Francine, I got a little water in my house. Not a little water in my house. I got a lot of water in my house. And so we've had to take out some walls and all kinds of things. And so we've had to box some things up. And, we're having to move furniture all around and, put some things in storage. And so I don't know if you've ever had that experience. I'm sure many of you have. But you're like, hey, where is that? And you're like, oh, it's in a box somewhere. You know, you have no idea where to find it. Well, I had a dilemma that happened even this week. I don't know, you can't really tell right here, but I wear glasses. Most of the time I wear my contacts. And so I didn't know where in the world my glasses were. And I had one of my contacts that was a little bit torn. If you've ever had that experience, that's just like the most comfortable feeling in the world right there. You know, and so you're trying to, man, what do I need to do? And so I thought, man, I got a big old box of contacts somewhere. I have no idea where they are. So I go into my storage place. I've got all my storage. And y'all, this is just the most practical thing. I said, God, I have no idea where to look. And I am really uncomfortable right now. And so, Lord, would you just help me? Will you just help me find? I mean, the most simple things. We think, praying for our health and praying for our kids. And I encourage you, do all those things. Praying for your job. All those things are so important. But do you know that God is interested in the little things of your life? He's interested in your contacts. He's interested in helping you find your keys. Let me tell you, I was in there and I was like, God, I have no idea where to look. And you know where it was? I said, God, it's probably on this very bottom box. So I opened several boxes. I'm going through them. And sure enough, I get to the very bottom box. There was nothing marked that would have said anything. I get to that very bottom box and there they were. Not 5 minutes. Had situations, where, again, just being all over the place, where I've set down my laptop and I've said, where is my laptop? Getting to the place where I'm feeling frazzled because I've got things to do. I've got places to go, people to see. And I'll stop and I say, God, you say, keep on asking, keep on knocking, keep on coming to you. And within 5 minutes, I found it. I said, man, I should have prayed. That should have been the very first thing I do. He wants us. He is our pathway to our provision. The second thing that I want us to see is that prayer is the petition for God's promise. It's a petition for God's promise. Look at verse 8. It says, for everyone who asks, receives. He who seeks finds, and to him who knocks, the door will be open. Ladies and gentlemen, that's just not a phrase in the Bible to make you feel good. That's a promise that you can bank on. You can say, He promised that for everyone who asks, that they received, that we are tapping into what God has already promised to us. I want you to hear that. That's a promise to you. And when you pray, you are tapping into that promise. God, I want us to understand, God is not the lottery. He's not the lottery. And I think so many times that we would look and we would say, well, maybe this prayer will work. Maybe this prayer won't. And it's like we're pulling the lever, going to the casino. Maybe it will work. Maybe it won't. No, that's not God. We're tapping in to the promise. Well, I know the question that you might be thinking, well, Pastor Dan, if God has promised that, does that mean that I can ask for $1 million today and God will give it to me? Well, slow your roll, all right? The best way to interpret the Bible, if you have a passage like this that says, ask and you'll receive, the best way to interpret your Bible is with other passages in the Bible. A lot of times what people will do is they'll approach the Bible and they'll say, oh, this is what it means to me. That can be a little dangerous. But how about when we look at the Bible, we say, okay, what other passages does the Bible say about this very topic? Well, I'm so glad that you asked, because we're going to put them up here on the screen. Look at this one. 1 John 5:14 through 15. This is what it says. It says, this is the confidence we have in approaching God. Talking about our prayers. Talking about our communication with Him. That if we ask anything according to His will, there it is. He hears us. And we know that He hears us. Whatever we ask, we know we have what we asked of Him. So here's what we learn. God has promised to you and to me to answer every single prayer that coincides with His will. So He's not going to answer anything that doesn't coincide with His will. Let me give you a great example of how this might work. You know, what Mr. Riggs mentioned, the city park night. We had such a great time going to that. And there were some things that I had to gather up, some equipment that I had to gather up and bring back here to the church. And so it was getting kind of late. My daughter asked if she could ride with me. And so I said, sure. How about you ride with me? You can help me bring things up to the church, and we'll set those things down, and then we'll head on home. And so anyway, there was a couple things that had to be brought down in this room, and there were a couple things that had to go upstairs in our youth room. And so she was helping me with this kind of stuff. And so to make a long story short, she was bringing something into our youth room, which also happens to have some sugary soda just sitting out. And so my daughter looks at me and says, Dad, can I have some of that orange Fanta that's up there? And I looked at her and I said, baby, it is 10:30 at night. And if you know, anybody that's been a parent, you know, for 5 minutes knows that it's not just sugar, it's drugs, okay? Let's just be honest. You give your kids sugar, you might as well just give them, I mean, they're going to be all wired and crazy. And I said, baby, it's 10:30. You can't have soda and then expect, and she'd had a 14-hour day, been at school, had fun, all these different things. I didn't want her to stay up late and then start feeling bad and melting down and all that kind of stuff. I could see ahead. What she couldn't see, I could see ahead. And that's what happens so many times in our prayers to the Lord. God, I want this so bad. And God, in His infinite wisdom, says, no, that's not right for you right now. Doesn't mean you can't have it. It just means that it's not right for you right now. Sometimes God says no to things because He has all the wisdom. God, why didn't the job interview work out? Because you can't see what's ahead. God, why did the relationship fizzle? I really wanted that person in my life. Because you can't see what's ahead. The house we wanted was sold to someone else. We were looking at, man, that was the one that we had set our heart on. You can't see what's ahead. Who knows? It might have had a foundation issue. Might have had some other issues. God, why didn't the healing come for me or for my loved one? Why did my loved one have to die? Why did I have to go to the hospital? Because I'm trying to shape and mold your character in ways that you can never imagine if you will just go along with my will. Do you see it? And so there's many times that His wisdom far exceeds our understanding, and we may feel disappointment, but it's really His loving hand redirecting us to His perfect plan. And then there's other times, if you don't mind me saying this, there's other times that God says no, because we're asking for things that, let's just be honest, He's already made a stand on. God's already told us. For example, you might be praying for a relationship to improve, but you're living together and you're not married. And God's looking at you this morning and He's looking at, He's looking and He's saying, you're not in my perfect will for your life. I've already talked about this. So you're asking me to improve on something when you need to be obedient to something. Oh, Pastor Dan, you're meddling. Okay, all right, I'll meddle a little more. You could be asking God to bless your finances, but you're not practicing honesty in your business. Or you're not dealing with generosity towards other people. Perhaps you're not tithing. God has given to you, and so you can turn around and say, God, I just want to give back a portion of what you've given to me. And if you will just be obedient to what He's already said, then He'll bless. And you're saying, God, but you're not answering my prayers for my finances. He says, but I've already talked about this. You already know what to do in this situation. Perhaps you're praying for peace in your life. Things have been stressful. And ladies and gentlemen, I don't know, man, if you live in this world, it's just like constant stress, it feels like. You're praying for peace, but God has already spoken about that unforgiveness that you're hanging on to. He's already talked to you about that bitterness that you're holding towards someone who has wronged you. You see, God has all these incredible promises for you, but to access them, He calls you to live in according to His will for your life, which includes you being obedient first. The final thing that I want to mention this morning is that prayer is the pursuit of God's presence. This is my favorite part. Hang with me. It says right here, which of you, if his son asks for bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, will give him a snake? Do you see this? What kind of relationship does God want with you? The same way a father would his son. A good father. Perhaps that you've had a bad father. But God is looking at you as a loving Father. He says, I love you and I care about you. When you come to me, I'm not going to give you things to shame you. Like a son. Look at this in verse 11. It says, if you then, though you are evil, and right here, you might be thinking, am I evil? I don't really feel like I'm evil. He's drawing a comparison to how we might act to how holy the Lord is, how His perfection. He says, though you're evil, know how to give good gifts. Look at this. To your children. To your children. Do you know how to give good gifts to your children? I don't know about you. I love giving gifts to my children. I love watching their eyes light up. Don't you? Giving gifts to your children. How much more will your Father in heaven give good gifts to those who ask Him? Jesus compares God the Father to an earthly father, reminding us that even as sinful human parents, we know how to give good gifts. Prayer at its core is about relationship. It's about intimacy. It's about trust. And can I be honest? If we could just let our hair down this morning, I feel like so many times we feel like we are standing outside the door that God is saying, listen, I want you to knock on. I want you to come to me. And perhaps we feel like there's shame. I don't know why this is. Can I just be honest? It's not in the notes this morning, but I don't know why this is. So many times that we've done something that we know is not of God, that God would not approve of, and we feel the distance between us and God. Instead of running to Him, why is it that we feel this need to run away? I don't know. Satan lies to us and said, man, you can't come to God. You can't go to Him. Look at what you've done. That's the biggest lie from the pit of hell. Jesus is there with His arms open wide saying, the best thing for you is not to run from me, but to run to me. Come to me and knock on the door. If you've ever seen the movie Frozen, there's this scene where Anna goes to her sister, Elsa, and Elsa, of course, has run away, and she's built this ice castle in order to isolate herself, and there's friction between her and her sister. And so there's been this whole journey. You guys know the movie. I think most of y'all would. There's been this whole journey for them to get there, and now they're at the door of this castle, and they're standing outside the door. And Anna, there's this moment where they've come so far. And Anna, sorry, you could correct me later. Anna has this moment where her hand is up, but she can't knock. And Olaf, who is the comic relief right there, looks out and he says, knock. Just knock. And then you can see in this picture, he leans back to Christoph and he says, why isn't she knocking? Do you think she knows how to knock? You know, and so you have this moment, and she hesitates to knock on the door because she's unsure of what will happen. She's unsure of how her sister will respond. And to be completely honest, here's what it is. She's afraid of rejection, just like some of us are when it comes to God. Can I give you one final thought? I have something that I'm going to bring up here. You can kind of track with me. I'm going to get it here this morning. Should have had some of the youth do this, but I'll do it this morning. Look what I brought today. I brought my door. When your house is under construction, it's great. You can get all your sermon illustrations right from that. Let me see if I can set it right here. And we can end on this. The reason Anna went to Elsa, the reason there was so much distance is because, Anna here, there had been this broken relationship. She didn't know if she could come. She didn't know if she would be rejected. And so God comes to each and every one of us and He says, hey, listen, knock. Why aren't you knocking? Do you know how to knock? It's through prayer. And I want you to grab this concept before we go. I want you to hear this. The door is unlocked. When Jesus died on the cross, He unlocked the door. He made a way for your sins to be forgiven. He made a way for all you'd have to do is come to Him and say, Lord, I believe you died on the cross. I believe you were resurrected from the dead. He has unlocked the door. And here you are standing outside the door, and His voice is looking at you and He's saying, come to me in prayer. I want you to experience my presence, because that's what you do. When you walk through doors, you have the presence. So many of you guys are keeping God on the other side of the door. You are happy to be on the doorstep when Jesus is calling you to His presence and to a relationship. The door is unlocked because of what Jesus has done on the cross. The question is, do you know how to knock? Why aren't you knocking? Do you know how to knock? You go to Him, not with these rote phrases that you may have memorized. You go to Him with just your normal prayers. There's actually Bible verses that say that He understands your groans. Did you know your groans are a different language? Have you ever had this moment where you don't even have the words? All you can do is groan? He understands that. He understands. That's this sound when you come to Him.